Hayden Fox with 21st Century Equipment, bringing you another episode of the FarmCast here today. So today we're standing in front of our model year 27 limited production build Gen 2 See Spray 2-tank machine. So before we get started, if you haven't heard, nomenclature changed a little bit on Deere's end. You know, we had Select, Premium, and Ultimate for 27 beyond. They basically combined all the features of those three machines, so there's not quite so many options to try to keep track of. So basically now we've got See Spray either dual tank or single tank. So simplified life a little bit there. So we'll walk around a little bit on this machine and I'll point out some of the key features that makes up this machine. If we start up at the front of the machine here, we'll notice that we've got camera brackets across the front here. So we've got our 4 cameras that were traditionally on the center frame. Deere moved those up to the front of the sprayer. We had a lot of issues with fallback because of dust behind the tires, so moving those cameras up front gets us out of the dust. The other thing that you'll notice up front here is this light. There's another one on the other side, and then there's quite a few of them across the boom. 27 and forward, now we can See Spray Fallow at night. In the past, it was just the Select machines, but moving forward for 27, it'll be a feature just again in fallow to start out with, but it'll be a feature available on all new 27s. So as we kind of work our way back, really when you look at the cab and chassis of the machine, nothing changed significantly. The one thing that you will notice is this machine is equipped with 4-wheel steer. We've got it just like we have it here, 4-wheel steer, or there's a crab steer feature. 4-wheel steer will be nice, using that in conjunction with things like auto path and turn automation. Once you get to the turn rows, get to the end of your field, this 4-wheel steer will let you whip right around and hold the same set of rows in your turn rows, so you're running over less crop. The one thing that we haven't been able to do in the past with our See Spray sprayers is run mobile weather. If you'll notice, this 27 does have mobile weather on it up top there. In the past, we just had issues with communication. There's too much happening on the machine. These 27s, they completely redesigned the electrical architecture in a way that allows us to run a lot of these nice features like mobile weather, row sense, things like that. The other thing that you'll notice as you're walking around kind of the front side of the machine here is this sprayer is equipped with what Deere is calling Smartview. Once we get up in the cab and take a look up there, there's 3 G5E monitors kind of up in the headliner. Basically, you've got 4 cameras on the machine itself and 2 on the booms that all feed into those monitors. What that is basically just an added safety feature. So for example, when you're folded up and you're getting ready to pull out on a highway, if you've got trees on each side of you, those boom cameras will look either direction for you and see if you've got oncoming traffic. You know, whether it's pulling up to the truck to load or pulling into the shop to park it for the winter or whatever the case may be, Smartview has really been nice, a nice addition to these machines. So as we work our way back towards the rear of the machine, as we're looking at the boom, it's the same truss style carbon fiber boom that Deere had released on the original Ultimate machines. So we're still using that boom. Again, I mentioned the boom lighting so we can See Spray fallow at night. And I mentioned the Smartview. Here's one of our boom cameras. So again, when the boom is folded up, that camera's looking outwards away from the machine essentially so that we can see oncoming traffic and things of that nature. As you're looking at a Gen 2 See Spray machine, what you'll notice, there's no longer VPUs or our vision processing units along the boom. What Deere has done is they've reduced the number of VPUs from 10 on a traditional Ultimate to 3 on a dual tank Gen 2 machine like this one. So it cleaned the boom up a lot less harnessing. The one thing that we do have now on either side of the boom are these VEXs, is what we call them, video extenders. Essentially, that's just an amplifier for all of our cameras from there on out. What you'll notice too is we've got brand new See Spray cameras. So our Gen 2 cameras, so these ones are a different design that will allow us to do a lot more things in the future. So we're not just looking at essentially a picture anymore. So again, Gen 2 See Spray cameras change the camera design that'll allow us to unlock a lot more features in the future. Some of the features that we'll see here short term for both our traditional early See Spray machines, Gen 1 See Spray machines, and our Gen 2s is be able to do stand counts. So what Deere's calling See Scout as these machines are running through the field. Right now, it's just for corn. That'll expand, but they're doing stand counts on the fly, whether you're See Spraying or broadcasting. Also, start collecting weed pressure maps. Again, Gen 1 and Gen 2 See Spray will be able to do that, but we'll have weed pressure maps as we're running through the field all the time, whether you're See Spraying or broadcasting. In the past, we've only got those weed pressure maps when we've been See Spraying. The other thing that you'll notice on these new Gen 2 cameras, if you're familiar with Gen 1 systems, is they redesigned our camera cables here and they actually make those camera cables serviceable now. So that was one hiccup or complaint we had, I guess, with Gen 1 machines. If you, for example, on our outside camera here, if we were to ruin, smack a connector, break a connector, whatever the case may be, we'd have to run an overlay harness. Now we can service those connectors on those cameras, and they're a lot more durable than they have been. As we get back here to the center frame, so the first thought or the first comment that everybody has when they look at the center frame of one of these sprayers is there is a ton going on here. And there is, but keep in mind this is a limited production build sprayer, so this will change by the time these sprayers hit production. But a couple things that I wanted to highlight on the center frame here. I mentioned we've only got 3 VPUs or vision processing units now, so all 3 of those are centrally located on our center frame. The other thing, I'm getting a little more technical here, but the other thing that is different on these, if you're familiar with the Gen 1 See Spray systems, we had a pair of airbags up here that helped control that center frame. We've done away with the airbags. Now we just have an additional set of hydraulic cylinders. So it's the same pendulum style center frame, just redesigned. What we found is the boom track on Gen 1 See Spray Ultimates was nothing to shake a stick at, but what we found is this boom track on Gen 2 See Spray has been even better, which is a little bit hard to believe, but it has been. So as I mentioned, and as you've seen so far, this sprayer is equipped with 4-wheel steer. One note on the 4-wheel steer is it's for the small frame machines only, 27 and beyond. So 410s, 412s, 408s, we won't be able to get the 4-wheel steer on the large frames like the 6s, 612s and 616s. If you take a look at the 4-wheel steer and kind of how that works, it's a lot cleaner than one would originally think. Basically, it's just an exact replication of the front axle. So again, we can crab steer and we can 4-wheel steer with this machine here. As we're looking at the right-hand side of the sprayer here, if you look at our plumbing on the sprayer itself, nothing changed there. If you're used to Gen 1 See Spray Ultimate, we've still got the fill pump, we've still got all the same plumbing that we had in the past. One thing that you may notice is different, if you've seen some 412 or 410 See Spray Gen 1 Ultimates out in the field in the past, is not all of them had that auxiliary hydraulic cooler. One complaint that we had got early on was issues with hydraulic oil overheating even on these small machines. So all new Gen 2 See Spray dual tank machines will have that auxiliary hydraulic cooler there on the side as well. As we're sitting inside the model year 27 Gen 2 dual tank See Spray machine, there's a few things that you'll notice here, most of which originated in model year 26, but we have redesigned corner post here that actually shows how each tank is set, which is nice. So in this instance here, we're running a dual tank configuration, so we're broadcasting and See Spraying at the same time. If you switch that over to combined tank, for example, you'll just have one solution tank there. The other thing that you'll notice, which we talked about, was Smartview. So we've got these 3 G5E displays here up in our visor that kind of give us a pretty good 360 view of the sprayer. So it's pretty nice. They're higher than your line of sight, so as you're running down the road or through the field, they're not right there in your face, but they're close enough. One of the other things that you'll notice is we've got a new touchscreen radio for 27 and beyond, and then just a few kind of creature comforts that they did change or that they added to these model year 27s and newer. I think my favorite feature of these new machines, if you go in to your menu and then go into this Headland Management system. So in the past, the Headland Management system didn't offer a whole lot. I mean, it'd re-engage, boom track, auto track, turn our master spray on. One feature that we've been asking for in sprayers forever, and if you're familiar with Hagees, they'll do it, but is this boom extra height. So what's nice about this is right from my hydro handle here, as I'm coming to the end of the field, one click of the button will slow me down, turn my master spray off, turn 4-wheel steer on, and it'll raise my booms however much I want them to. Before, that was kind of a manual step. You had to remember to tilt your booms if you were up against a fence, for example, but now with one click of the button, we can do all those functions and features without having to push a bunch of different buttons. So once you get this set up, if you're running turn automation on a sprayer, it really takes all of the work and effort out of running a sprayer. There's about 2 button pushes, one when you're coming back into the field, one when you're leaving the field, and that's about all you have to do anymore. The other thing that you'll notice on this model year 27 sprayer is a completely redesigned user interface. We now have the option, if there's machine settings that you're in and editing all the time, We can set favorites so that you don't have to come down to machine settings or applications and hunt for whatever app you're needing to get into. We can set all of our favorites just right on that first screen. If we get into our machine settings, if we look at things, for example, like this nozzle system, if you're familiar with Exact Apply in the past, you'll notice that we've got kind of a redesigned user interface for a lot of our interactions that we're used to. Like I said, the nozzle system, the boom system, if we need to get in and adjust any of our boom track settings, is completely different than it used to be. So it's a lot more easy, user friendly in my opinion, and it makes a lot more sense having things split out this way than they did in the past. The last nice thing that they added to these Gen 2 model year 27 sprayers, if you'll remember the 26s and previous had a kind of another, it looked like your steering column tilt pedal there. They had another pedal right here in the middle to unfold your booms. Personally, if you go back to the older R series sprayers, I always liked the dimmer switch for our unfold, so they did replace that foot pedal with a dimmer switch for your auto fold and unfold, which is kind of nice. And then if you're in somewhere where you need four-wheel steer and can't really take your hands off the hydro handle or the steering wheel, like if you're doing, up against the fence, going around the edge of a field, there is a four-wheel steer engage button right down here on the floor, so I don't have to take my eyes off of what I'm doing and try to hunt for that button. I can just hit it right there on the floor to engage my four-wheel steer and get around what I need to get around. As we're walking through our run screen here, one thing that you'll notice is we are actually spraying sugar beets today. So this is the first demo, the first field of sugar beets that we have sprayed. We've actually had way better luck than we originally planned or thought that we would. It has worked pretty fantastic. So pretty excited to see what these machines will do for a lot of our sugar beet growers. We're standing in front of a LPB model year 2027 Gen 2 See Spray dual tank machine, but I wanted to take a little bit of time to just touch on the Gen 1 See Spray systems again and clarify a few things. There's been a lot of hype, especially in our area, about these new machines, See spraying things like sugar beets, barley, wheat, things like that. We've had a lot of questions about, well, can I put these new cameras and new VPUs on my older sprayer? The answer is no. Deere changed the electrical architecture of these sprayers model year 27 and forward, so we can't put this specific hardware on your machine, but what we still can do is order a precision upgrade kit for model year 18 to model year 26 sprayers. So that part still rings true. The other misconception or question that we get a lot is, can I see and spray these new crops that are coming out with my Gen 1 system? And the answer is right now, yes. So Deere did announce that they will be basically backdating things like sugar beets, barley, wheat to those Gen 1 See and Spray systems. So right now the target date for that's sometime early 2027. Other thing that was kind of a big piece of news that Deere announced right around April 1st was they no longer charge a license unit for fallow. So traditionally, if I sprayed a field of fallow, I would get charged $1 an acre on the acres that I didn't apply chemical to. So it's a little bit confusing, but just think, if I have a 100-acre field of fallow and I saved 50%, I would get charged an additional $50 to spray that field. That is no longer, so we still do have the license units for in-crop, but again, there's no license unit for fallow. We've had conversations with a few of our growers as well. There is an unlimited license that you can purchase if you're covering enough acres with one of your See and Spray machines. Again, that's a yearly license, but basically what it allows you to do is pay up front and kind of calculate that cost out throughout the year rather than the unknown of getting into a field, not sure what weed pressure will be, not sure what, how many license units you'll use. So do have an option for an unlimited license if you're covering the acres. The other nice thing that Deere announced that is pretty new, and this includes the Gen 1 premiums and ultimates, but again, and this will be in 27, but from now on, if you're out broadcast spraying, it doesn't matter if you're seeing spraying or not, but if you're out broadcast spraying, we'll now be able to record weed pressure maps just on the fly. And if you're broadcast spraying, it's again recording weed pressure maps, but you're not getting built any license units. So you'll still have the insight and the data from a See and Spray pass, but if you're doing something like laying down residuals where you can't See and Spray, you'll still get that data. The other thing that we'll be able to do with Gen 1s and 2s are what John Deere's calling See and Scout. So what that's going to do is for right now, it's just for corn, but they will create a stand count map essentially, and that'll be uploaded to that field as another map layer in Operations Center. Again, that won't cost anything. The free fallow, the free weed pressure maps continuously and the free stand count maps for 27 on both Gen 1 and Gen 2 systems. So really a nice way to unlock a lot of data that we haven't been able to get our hands on in the past.